Welcome back to International Finance. I am Andy Kim, and then as the second part of my week 2 lecture, we're going to talk about interwar period monetary system, and we'll move down to Bretton Woods system that uh, started from the end of Second World War and then lasted until 1972. Then moved down to breakdown of Bretton Woods system. Interwar period. Remember, this period is how do you say um, imperial competition period, right? After First World War, right? They did not know how to how do you say uh, live together well. Instead, they were taking beggar thy neighbor policy kind of things, right? Ultimate like competition against each other to the end, right? To the infinity. That was what they were doing in European continent, right? Then major countries followed the sterilization of gold policy, and then essentially with the World War One, the gold standard broke down. Okay, classical gold standard broke down. Countries widely used predatory depreciations of their currencies as a means of gaining advantages in the world export market. Imperial competition, I told you, right? Beggar thy neighbor, I have to sell my products cheaply than yours. Um, and then to the, how do you say, the German Empire, the countries that lost in the First World War, right? The winner countries imposed so much, how do you say, liabilities to this country, war criminal country, maybe they would say it, whatever way you wanted to say it. So that, so much so that these countries who got indebted so much was not able to come up with that repayment in the future as they went on, so that the Germany experienced hyperinflation, and then the social unrest took place, and then with this unstable foreign currency FX regimes going on in the international market, they were not able to compete too much, right? So a lot of social unrest invited such a dictator called Hitler, and then there's some tremendously unwanted consequence happened over there. All around Europe suffered a lot, right? And then this period is characterized by economic nationalism and half-hearted attempts and failure to restore gold standard, especially by Churchill, right? And then economic and political instabilities took place, and a lot of with this Great Depression ever since 1929, right? The bank failures here and there, and then the series of depression in all different countries took place, and then with that, a lot of international, so much of international capital flew from one country to another country as a panicky fashion, which was no good for economic development or stabilization of the system. And in the end, they experienced the Second World War, okay, inviting even more troublesome war, okay, horrible world war. So at the end of Second World War, the, how do you call it? These Anglo-American Union, right? These countries, they were thinking about or devising uh, better international monetary system that can prevent the trouble they experienced during this interwar period. How can we prevent the appearance of a second Hitler, right? Or second Hitler in different countries, right? They thought, well, we need to stabilize the FX system somehow. Otherwise, those unstable foreign exchange rates will prevent the international trades. No good for anybody, okay? And then perhaps we should not impose such a tremendous war debt liabilities to the loser country. So let's be more cooperative. Otherwise, right, we would invite another, we may end up with another unwanted dictators, or they may fall into communist world, Stalin, right? And this is a period of Cold War. You don't want big manufacturing empire to fall into that enemy states, right? So that's why the Bretton Woods system was devised, okay? And then they gathered in New Hampshire resort in Bretton Woods, and then the purpose of the meeting was to discuss and design the post-war international monetary system, and then they described as a dollar-based gold exchange standard. It's not gold standard, but dollar-based gold exchange standard. Okay, what is that about? Well, I told you the purpose of it to stabilize the FX system, so that the US dollar will be the only currency that can be converted into gold at $35 per ounce of gold. The rest of the currencies, well, resort to the US dollars at fixed exchange rates. Okay? If you, right, Swiss franc or French franc or British pound, right, if you want to convert your money into gold, then first convert it into US dollar at fixed exchange rate and then convert it into gold, right? Now, the purpose again is fixed exchange rate between US dollar and your currency, right? Now that was let me go to the next slide first. So this one is a picture of that design, gold exchange standard system, right? British pound, whatever currency that you have, and you have fixed exchange rate with US dollars, and then US dollar will be exchanged into gold. At first it was like $35 per ounce, right? So essentially it was like heavily dependent on US dollars, like as if US was a Superman taking care of the whole world, right? Like this. Now that invited a paradox called Triffin's paradox, right? Triffin's paradox. And it's proposed by Professor Triffin, of course. And it explains the collapse of the system in the early 1970s. Where the story is, right, US dollar is working as a reserve currency, right? And the reserve currency country should run a balance of payments, deficits. As long as you, right, it's in the end, United States, you are being excessively too much generous to the rest of the countries to support their economic development. Can you handle those things in the future? Why? You are trying to develop, help them their economic recovery, right? By having this kind of Bretton Woods gold exchange system, right? Your dollar-based gold exchange system at fixed exchange rate. But if the other countries develop and they export more, right? For them to develop more, they have to export a lot of goods to a big market called United States yourself, which means you are going to run a lot of trade deficits. Huge amount of trade deficits. Can you handle that? Initially in 1945 or 50s, right? Single superpower of the whole world, because the rest of the countries in Europe or Japan they were totally devastated. You could carry it in the short run, but in the long run, can you carry that? Right? You would run a deficit, huge amount of deficits against Japan, against Germany, Britain, and blah blah blah. Deficits in your country, that means US dollar should devalue. And then remember, gold and US dollar, $35, right, per ounce. Can you sustain that in the future? You cannot. That's Triffin's paradox, right? So it should run a balance of payments deficits, but this can decrease confidence in the reserve currency and lead to the downfall of the system. Until when? Until when I was born, 1972, right? So the flexible exchange rates regime started after I was born, 1973. Okay, up until now. The flexible exchange rate regime was ratified in January 1976 when the IMF members met in Jamaica and agreed to a new set of rules referred to as Jamaican Agreement. Number one, flexible exchange rates were declared acceptable to the IMF members, and central banks could intervene in exchange markets to iron out the unwanted unwarranted volatilities, right? Flexible exchange rate started, and then gold was officially abandoned or demonetized as an international reserve asset. Now came the fiat currency system, fiat money, right? I'm gonna come back to that fiat money kind of concept in the next slide. Non-oil exporting countries and less developed countries were given greater access to IMF funds. What is IMF? All these kind of things, we're going to talk about it in chapter 3 or going further down. Okay, so wait for that. Now, fiat money, right? How do you understand, how do you interpret this? Well, the fiat is Latin word. It came from the Bible, right? In the Genesis, they said, Dixitque Deus fiat lux, et facta est lux. What does that mean? Well, it says, and said God, let there be light, and there was light. Okay. Likewise, without anything, there was nothing in the total chaos, nothing out there. But God said, let there be light, and there was light. Okay. Fiat lux. It's like a I should do it like this. Fiat lux, and there was light, and it was good, right? And likewise, I would say the central bank said, let there be money. Let there be money. And money, right? So with the trust, right? The central bank can claim and say, let there be money. And there is money. Is it backed by gold? No. That's the point, right? It's not backed by any precious metal or anything like that. It's just purely based on trust. Right? So that's what fiat money is about. It's dependent on the central authority who prints the money. Okay? The seigniorage based ones. Seigniorage, señor, right? He's the Lord, the central banker, the Lord of the Ring. Prints money, let there be money, and you believe in it and you take it. Okay? That's the idea of fiat money. It's not backed by gold or anything. So that's that. The trade weighted value of the US dollar is shown over here since 1964. And then you see the dollar value fluctuated ever since, since 1972. Collapse of Bretton Woods, right? When I was born. And then, 저주받은 구약번호, I say, right? Ever since I was born, the volatility in the market started to increase. A lot of fluctuations. You see the dollar value devaluing and going up and going down and like this. The Plaza Agreement, that was a time when the Japanese yen started to appreciate, which means the US dollar value started to depreciate. Before that, the Japanese yen was they were a lot manipulated by the Central Bank of Japan, right? And then there was technology boom and the global financial crisis, depending on the economic situation in the world, right? And in the US market, the US dollar strength goes up and down, okay, like this. We are here. Now, right, the next couple of slides is about all different countries' currency exchange rate arrangements. So different countries have different regulations about FX, right? Some countries, they go for fixed. Some countries, they go for flexible. and then some countries go for basket, or some countries go for currency board systems, right? I'm not going to ask you to memorize all these things, right? It's just that always you can refer to the tables. What's the point of memorizing it, right? In any case. But I'm going to tell you a little bit of interesting stories of different one or two countries there. The currency regime, right, or the or it affects the arrangements, right? You can group them into about 10 different groups, right? I would say. So the first one, no separate legal tender is there, right? The second one is currency board. We're going to talk about this currency board system, an extreme form of the fixed exchange rate regime under which local currency is fully backed by the US dollar or other chosen standard currency, like Hong Kong dollar pegged at US dollar. Some countries do dollarization, by the way. Some countries get out of it. And then Brunei is also there. Brunei, that's their currency is 1-to-1 with Singapore. You're gonna see it later. Sing dollars. And then 3 is conventional peg, right? Country formally pegs its currency at a fixed rate to another currency or basket of currencies. The basket of currencies is you see a slight difference between these two. The stabilized arrangement is also there. It entails a spot market exchange rate that remains with a margin of 2% for 6 months or more. And crawling peg is also there, and crawl-like arrangement is also there. And then pegged exchange rate with horizontal bands is also there. Other managed arrangements are there, and then floating. Where Korea is here, right? Floating, largely market determined without an ascertainable or predictable path for the rate. And there are countries with completely free floating. Intervention occurs only exceptionally and aims to address disorderly market conditions. And then the authorities confirm intervention has been limited to at most 3 instances in the previous 6 months, each lasting no more than 3 business days. So Australia, Canada, Mexico, Japan, UK, US, and Eurozones, right? Now, currency board, right? When it comes to currency board, Hong Kong to US dollar is over here, right? 7.8 Hong Kong dollar per US dollar has been there, right? You see Hong Kong's. One interesting thing is who prints this money? Standard Chartered Bank or HSBC, right? Or 中国银行, right? 中国银行. Why isn't there Central Bank of Hong Kong? Monetary authority is there, but it's an association. I mean, the association of these big banks, they are printing this money, right? This is not like Korea. We have Bank of Korea, but in Hong Kong, it's like the private banks are printing this, right? Under the authority of this central, government authority. Anyway, and then another thing I want to tell you is about the Brunei, right? Which is 1-to-1, right, pegged to currency board, you say. With Singapore dollar, right? 1-to-1 exchange, fixed, nothing, right? Just fixed. So here is the currency unit, 10,000 Sing dollars, and then 10,000 Brunei Darussalam, right? Wait, is that the ringgit? I'm sorry, right? Darussalam must be the king. I'm sorry, but ringgit. Must be the unit over here, 10,000, right? So 1-to-1. How much is it? One piece of paper is worth 7,500 US dollars worth. Yes! And then 840만 원. Oh my God, almost like 1,000만 원. Like, here you are. Yes, that's Brunei and Singapore. That $10,000 Singapore dollars is disappeared. I mean, is soaked up by the Central Bank of Singapore because there's a lot of chance that unwanted guys may use it, black money, right? So they want to bring it back to central government and then just throw away. So that's the movement. European monetary system, right? That's the thing we want to talk about. Why don't we cover this one in the next set of video? Thank you for watching. All right.